Welcome to Choreography, a podcast about the greatest sport on ice, figure skating. I'm Wendy Buskey.
And I'm Adrian Buskey, and this is our Junior World Championships 2025 recap. We were initially going to do this as sort of a combo episode with coverage of the Legacy on Ice event happening in the States this weekend. However, it felt like a lot to kind of put together into one thing, and as of this recording, we have not yet watched the Legacy on Ice event, so we're going to save that for a later episode where we can talk about it. And before we dig into Junior Worlds, I do think that there is a surprise elephant in the room.
It's a big elephant
that we have to cover here, and I have very mixed feelings about it. But it is the surprise weekend announcement of a new ice dance team coming for next season, comprised of Laurence Fournier Beaudry and Guillaume Cizeron.
Yeah. It's a little bit much to process, and I don't know that it was a surprise for everyone. It seems like quite a few people had been aware that they were practicing together in Montreal, and funny enough, we were talking literally the night before Guillaume posted on Instagram his hint or teaser, if you will, for their partnership, that we were waiting for somebody to make a comeback, and this wasn't on our radar, but it's definitely going to mix things up going into an Olympic season.
So the year before the Olympics, you almost always have somebody come out of retirement or quasi-unannounced retirement to make their swing for the Olympic season. And sometimes you do see noted skaters who have disappeared for 3 years or so come back because they want to make it to the Olympics. I have said it on the show before, and I'll say it again. I hate that.
How do you really feel?
I really don't like it. I don't like the come out of retirement by previous champs who have sat out a number of seasons with the sole goal of jumping in just to go to the Olympics. There's a couple of different things I don't like about it. I don't like it particularly when you see people who have already won, who have already got those decorations, who already had those big moments. It feels like they come out of retirement to be like, I just want to do it again. And so all of those other people who spent the last 3 years doing that competition and working really hard towards it, it's like these people just tend to jump right back to the front of the line. And sometimes they still have the talent and skill to do it. But to me, there just feels like there's something about like robbing the next generation of skaters of their moment by leaping back in there again. Now, sometimes there are smaller federations that don't have a lot of representation and they wouldn't necessarily have anybody actually competitive. And so you have people who return, and I kind of get that. But in general, I often just have the feeling of if you were like a great and then you leave and then you just kind of jump back in because you just want that gold again, there's something about that I don't like. And I know people love that story. I know that people get really excited about it. People ask us sometimes, wouldn't it be great if Nathan Chen came back for next season? And my response is always, no, I don't want that.
And this is where you and I differ, because if Nathan Chen announced tomorrow he was coming back, I would leap out of my skin. Same with Yuzuru Hanyu. And God help me if Shoma Uno decided to reclaim his position, I would be very excited. That said, I completely respect your opinion on this, because it is true. It feels like we've been watching this next generation of skaters come up and really take ownership of the discipline, and to have people kind of just show back up and wave like, hey guys, we're back. It's a little weird, but to put a point on it for this specific team, only one of those members does this count towards.
Right. It is different in the sense that this is not Gabby Papadakis and Guillaume Cizeron returning 3 years after they won gold at the Olympics.
It's far messier than that.
It's way messier than that. And it's messy because Gabby and Guillaume had a pretty unamicable split as
more
a
so
team.
than I think we realized.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways it happened off the ice and away from a lot of general attention, because they didn't officially retire immediately after the Olympics. They just stopped competing, but they were still doing some shows together. But there was clearly a lot of tension going on between them and in that camp, both in the run-up to the Olympics and afterwards. And Gabby has been pretty open about a lot of her personal struggles and the way that she felt very unsupported by both her partner and their coaching team during points of their career. And a lot of this stuff is very interpersonal type of things. And we're not a gossip show, right?
No.
Like Other people will happily deep dive into all of the personal histories and the drama and those kind of things behind it.
And please go listen to them if you're more interested. It's just not our thing.
Right, exactly. I'm just overall not particularly absorbed with that type of parasocial relationship with skaters in that way. We try to stay informed, but I also don't need to know every aspect of their personal lives. But it does get stickier when you have somebody like Lolo, who her previous on-ice partner and her romantic partner, Nicholas Sorensen, had sexual abuse allegations against him, which did end up in him being essentially terminated from the sport, suspended for 6 years, which effectively ended his career and effectively ended their run as a team, both competitively and towards that Olympic dream. Again, this is one of those spaces where a lot of other people will have more nuanced conversations about this than I think that we're set up to do here. But it does have a weird effect of having her return with Guillaume, who was very supportive of Nick through a lot of that, and her, because they are friends. They have been training partners on the same ice for a long time. And you put out on Instagram basically a question of how does everybody feel about this? A lot of the response was, some of it was excited, but a lot of it was pretty negative or pretty squicked out.
It was 60-40. I'd say 40% of people were like, hooray, this is going to be interesting. And 60% were not excited about it. I think you put it really well earlier. Am I excited? No. Am I interested as a skating fan? Sure. I'm curious to see where this goes. Interested in terms of like what it's going to do for the sport versus happy about it are very different things. And it's a complicated thing. And I don't know how to feel about it other than, okay, well, this is now something that we have to deal with for the next season, and just taking it on the pure skating level, taking everything personal out of it. It's a super group in the sense of like you have two extraordinarily talented people who are going to be skating together. It's just potentially going to be quite impressive. Once you know a little bit more about it, it feels a little bit weirder. And also, to the point you made, you have Guillaume. He is an Olympic gold medalist, and he's coming back in to reclaim his spot, sort of. So I'm honestly just curious to see where they land amongst the top teams now, because inevitably they're going to be amongst them. I can't imagine they won't be. It certainly mixes things up going into the Olympic season. And for them to announce right before Worlds casts like a really interesting lens over the dance competition in Boston.
For one thing, they'll be skating for the French Federation.
Yeah.
And that is clearly already locked in.
Yes.
Laurence used to skate for Canada. Obviously, Guillaume has been with the French Federation all along. But that before the announcement was all taken care of. So that's a done deal. And when you look at skaters like Lapareva and Brosseau, who have been making this consistent come up over the last couple of seasons and are your top French team right now and have been placing higher and higher and starting to get actual recognition, for them, I have this feeling of, oh, you're going to get sidelined. It's like your federation is going to take the super group and just slot them in ahead of you after you've done so much achievement. That makes me feel pretty uncomfortable. And I get this is sport, this is competition, you're trying to put your best foot forward and all that, but there's just something about that I find a little distasteful. And I get there's a lot of nuance to it. And what you were saying too about like if you take all of the other context away, and I should preface that saying a bit of the context of that is also seeing Gabby Papadakis's posts on Instagram that are very clearly a sense of betrayal about this, and that the fallout of this for her feels very unpleasant. And she's basically posted some poetry, like some Sylvia Plath poetry and some other quotes and stuff where you're not saying it, but you're saying it. You know, there is a distinct sense of betrayal around this.
Well, and I think you had said that they unfollowed each other on Instagram too. So
I read that. Yeah. There's sometimes we have this feeling like when a skating partnership It's a lot like, I don't know, if you were fans of a TV show that you really loved or a movie series. It's like when people want the kids who were in Harry Potter to be best friends for the rest of their lives, or like Tessa and Scott. Everybody wanted them to be a couple and they just weren't. And there's that sense sometimes like you want people to be friends forever. And that's just not the way it always works. You know, sometimes things terminate, sometimes they end poorly and people move on. And sometimes it's messy. Friendships are messy, partnerships are messy, business is messy, sports is messy. And this is clearly messy. I tend to have a little bit more empathy for Gabby in this kind of situation.
Same.
I don't like the feeling of seeing the way that it's kind of impacted her. But if you do separate all that context out, the thing that you were saying that it would be exciting for sport, Guillaume is one of the best male ice dancers the sport has ever seen.
Yes.
And there was a long stretch of his career with Gabby where announcers and fans would openly talk about how he was the better partner. That had to weigh on Gabby so much over the years because there was always the like, he's the greatest and she's pretty good. And then in the last 4 or 5 years, she skyrocketed up to his level and they were incredible. And she was always good. It was just, this is the discourse around a lot of it, but she really skated up to that. Now you have Laurence Fournier Beaudry, who was always the clear standout of her partnership with Sorensen, where the same kind of commentary. She's one of the best in the business and is held back a little bit by him being just not quite as strong. Now you're pairing two people who were always very, very good together, and that could be a great team. That could be exceptional. And normally ice dance requires years to get to that point. But like you said, it's entirely possible that that team could just show up like a wrecking ball on the scene next season.
It's really hard to say, but I think we've probably covered enough.
Anybody could do an entire episode just on
easily.
This
There's
because
so
it is
much.
So complex. The question we got several times was, how do we feel about it? And the response is complicated. It will be interesting. It could be exciting, but on an emotional level, I don't feel very good about it.
Same. That's a really good way to put it.
Okay, to then do a pretty massive gear shift, because I feel like tonally that last part of the conversation is a lot more uncomfortable and vehement than we typically are in this show. We try to be pretty good vibes. I struggle to have good vibes about that particular announcement, but there's a lot of good stuff to talk about with Junior Worlds. I do want to preface this part of the conversation to say, though, that we are going to be very heavy on the singles events, particularly the women, but also the men. We just didn't really watch a whole lot of the junior ice dance or pairs. And just in general, I didn't find as much to hold my interest in those zones, although there are some pairs teams that I actually liked a lot. But I think the big excitement was really in the singles events, so that's where we're going to focus our energy.
Yeah, and the easiest place to start is with the women, because Mao Shimada just proved again that it's an actual shame that she's not going to be at this Olympic Games, although I am still happy about the age change that the ISU made. That said, she was astoundingly great.
In general, the women's event was so strong.
So strong.
When we look at the top 10, everybody is 179 and higher. There were a lot of Ultra C elements here. I think there were 9 attempted or landed triple axels, multiple quads. And while I'm iffy about sometimes that desperate need to have the women jumping a crazy amount of these really hard jumps while their programs and their bodies deteriorate, I think we do see a strong level of technique re-entering the women's field in a way that feels very exciting. Mao Shimada at the top here, she three-peats. This is her 3rd consecutive world championship. It is hard to imagine anybody getting past her next year as well if she continues to skate at the level that she's at, because she is against a very strong field here and wins with a 2:30.84, which is a full 40 points over second place, and she did it with 2 magnificent programs.
Her short program to Defying Gravity, we literally watched all the way through, got to her scores, and then went back and watched again immediately.
Yep.
It was that good. I don't like saying things are flawless. I'm sure there are a few very teeny, tiny flaws, but you'll have to take a magnifying glass to it. It was beautiful. And she has also evolved so much already as a performer. And that's what really astounds me about Mao. She's obviously an extremely competent technical skater. We all know that. But her engagement with the audience, her brightness, her effervescence, there is something so special about her. Every year I wait for her to falter, and instead she fills up more of the rink. This tiny little person that is just bigger than life. And I am very much like Ted, the announcer for the ISU feed. I can't imagine that there's ever really been a better junior world champion.
Yeah, of anything that I've ever seen. And granted, I think an important note for any of the discussion of juniors on this show is that we just don't really watch a lot of juniors.
No, we don't.
And which is really just a time thing. There's
Yes.
just only so many hours in the day, and we just don't focus our energies there. So we kind of usually watch like the junior Grand Prix final and worlds, and that's most of what we see. And then we see a lot of these skaters, the ones who can actually compete in seniors a little bit or at their own nationals. Otherwise, there's a lot of these skaters we don't see a lot of. But Mao is such a unique and special performer. And like you said, you have to kind of really nitpick her programs in order to find flaws. I think in her free skate, there might have been a cue and maybe an edge warning or something, but I think that's about it. The jumps are fantastic. The performance value is so high. She's so able to engage with the crowd at that very senior level with huge charisma. She is not as graceful and artistic as the second perennial silver placer, Jia Shin. And this is a thing that we've said for the last couple of years, that Mao is this complete package. Aesthetically, I like Jia Shin's skating just a little bit better, but it's inarguable that Mao Shimada's total package is phenomenal and just kind of untouchable.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. But Jia Shin really did show why she has been second the past 4 years at Junior Worlds. I want to get that girl a gold medal, please. She hasn't been able to do it yet at Worlds, at least. Other places, yes. She had a problem in the short, so had fallen back and was in 7th going into the free skate. And then other than, I think, one mistake earlier in her program, was just astoundingly great. She proved again why she is such a mature, complete artistic skater. And I think the move to Brian Orser and Tracy Wilson's camp in Canada, it's been a little rocky for her, but it always is when you're making a coaching change. And this season was an evolution for her. Like, her program material is a lot more mature than it had been in previous seasons. Next year is her first senior season, right in time for the Olympics, which Mao Shimada won't get in time. So it's going to be interesting seeing how she continues to progress over the summer and inserts into the competition with seniors next year leading into the Olympics. But here, a silver medal is a great way to end her junior career.
I'm so excited to see what comes next for her. I think that they really are kind of rebuilding her. And
yes.
This season has reflected that in a lot of ways, where it has been a bit unsteady and unpredictable for Jia. But I think her rising back to that silver position should make them feel pretty confident for the skater that they can make her into. Coming back from 7th into 2nd with a 190.53 total, I think that bodes well for what she will do in seniors. And I'll be very excited to see what she brings next year, especially as that situation with her in Brian Orser's camp evolves her as a skater.
3rd place, it was honestly a very big surprise, to me at least. Elise Gracie from the USA, after having a brilliant Challenger Series in the seniors, and then in the Senior Grand Prix, faltering probably, at least we expect, due to a lot of pressure because she had done so well on the Challenger Series. And then to get the nod here to come to Worlds seemed to be a surprise to her. I think it was a surprise to me too, because I didn't really expect that. And then she did her job. She really came through and was in 4th in the short, 3rd in the free, 3rd overall, just rounded out a stunning podium.
I am so thrilled for Elise. She looked fantastic at the beginning of this season with huge numbers in seniors. I think there's a good possibility that she was really training to peak early with the expectation that she was not going to the Senior Grand Prix, and that it was about establishing herself a little bit in seniors and getting those senior numbers at those early events. And she ended up just blowing the roof off of the place. And then she had to go into the Senior Grand Prix with that pressure of, you have some of the best scores of the season. Can you continue to put that together? And she wasn't able to at the rest of those senior competitions. But here she comes into third with a 188.71. She is less than 2 points behind Jia Shin, which, considering the quality of Jia Shin, is a pretty spectacular outcome. That rise one step up to get there on the podium, a real big deal, huge thing for the U.S. Fed. I just couldn't be more thrilled for her. Elise is such a wonderful skater. She has so much ability. I think she has the potential for even more than we're already seeing. And what I'm hoping for is that she's one of those skaters who, over the next several years, matures into something really spectacular.
Agreed. And I'm going to eat my words here because when we were doing our U.S. Nationals recap, I had said I was really sad that she was going because I thought Sherry Zhang had earned that spot at Nationals. And I am officially eating my words. I'm so glad Elise was sent, and I'm so glad that she did so well.
There's something to be said for the other American woman here didn't perform as well, and perhaps Sherry Zhang might have worked out better. But in the case of Elise, obviously hindsight tells us that was the correct choice.
Right. But in fourth here, not too far behind Elise and Gracie, was Ami Nakai, who's had a great season overall, was really strong here, but after a really solid short program, faltered a little bit more than she could afford to in the free skate, falling behind by about 3-ish points. Not a big margin, and a super talented skater, lots of potential, and has more time. I think she's at least got another season or two in juniors. So as always, the Japan team is so deep. That field is incredible, and they always come through. And she did, just not quite enough.
I'm honestly kind of surprised that she held on to the fourth place position after the free skate, because it was a really messy free. She had been so much better in the short, and it's a shame to see it kind of come apart like that. It is nice that she held on to fourth. I don't know that I would have kept her in fourth over France's Stefania Gladkey, who I think was so sharp in the free skate that I think I probably would have put her over Nakai. But again, this is also like 3 Japanese women in the top 10 here. Never a surprise to see that in seniors. Never. Shouldn't be a surprise to see it here. And I think that despite things going wrong, Ami Nakai is a wonderful skater, and it just was unfortunate to see it kind of come apart in the free. But like I said, Gladkey, who has come on really strong this season, very nice skates here, lots of talent, a lot of star power. That's a skater who has some real potential to grow and increase her artistry and really exert the charisma that she has on ice. These programs are not super standout to me, but I do think that Gladkey is an exciting skater.
Yeah, I will say too, for the young woman in 6th place, Inga Gerganidze from Georgia, she struck me as someone who is, at this point in her career, a short program skater.
Yeah.
That she was second in the short, super strong. The free just seemed to get away from her. She just needs more time, like a little bit more run-throughs of that free, but also could have just been nerves. I mean, this is the Junior World Championships, so it's hard to say, and I am not familiar enough with her career trajectory so far to know, but that's at least my impression of her from this competition. I am really interested to see what she does next, but I did see tons and tons of potential there.
I liked the thematic of her free skates. I thought that what she was doing was really interesting. There's a term that one of our listeners used to describe Mikhail Shidorov after our last episode, which was unpolished diamond. And there's a lot of the skaters here that I feel like are unpolished gems. I mean, obviously, Mao Shimada is a polished to perfection, shining diamond. But like all of them have so much potential, and there's just a lot of refinement that will come as they get a little bit older and they move up into those senior ranks. With this skater here, I think that was definitely the case.
There's still a few that I want to mention and give like special shout outs to, though, in this competition beyond just that top 6. The first person that comes to mind is Hannah Bath from Australia. Wow. She was incredible. We watched her in the short. She was 17th. She didn't rank very high, but there was already some obvious skill and talent there. She came in 4th in the free skate, 10th overall, absolutely extraordinary. And she landed a triple axel double toe, her first in competition. She is one to watch.
I did not know anything about Hannah Bath before this. She skates for Australia. I think she trains in Japan. Something to contextualize when we talk about her dropping to 17th. When you look at the short program, The short program at this event was not like Senior Worlds or at Four Continents, where you have a whole lot of very mid to low tier skaters hitting really low scores and don't have the technical. Almost every woman here was skating a very similar program. They were doing triple lutz, triple toe, so triple triples, a double axel, and usually like a triple flip. The variation of the short program is that you did have a few people who threw triple axels, and you'd get a few people who'd maybe hit a triple double. But overall, the technical level was very consistent,
yes,
skater to skater. So as long as people skated clean, you had to really lean on levels and skating skills and your GOEs. And even though she was in 17th, she was in a deep field of people who were skating very similar kinds of programs. And then, yeah, you see her 4th in the free overall as what I think of as a relative unknown. I could be totally wrong. In the comments, tell us if she's been a rising star that we just had not heard of. But legitimately were some of my favorite skates of this entire event. I really, really liked Hannah Beth's style and her programs, and I thought she was great.
As you mentioned earlier, Sophie Jolien van Velten from the US placed in 18th overall, didn't have her best competition here, but that said, still landed her triple axel, triple toe. I think the triple toe might have been under rotated, but still landed that in her free skate. Landed an under-rotated quad in the free skate as well, but still did it, still went for it. I think she even went for a second triple axel on that free skate now that I'm thinking about it.
She did, yeah.
So she still threw down quite a bit of technical content there. She needs to grow as a performer because everybody is skating with such a high level. Even by throwing these Ultra C elements, if the rest of your skating isn't as high quality as everyone else's, you're going to take the hit and you're not going to be able to rise. So it's an interesting thing to see these big elements not move her up higher, but it totally makes sense whenever you're looking at the whole package of what people are doing. And while she was in 23rd after the short, she came in 17th in the free. It's still, I'm sure, not where she wanted to be at all, but it was really strong overall. And I think that she should be quite proud of what she did. It's just going to, again, take time and more experience.
I feel like in some senior competitions, she could have muscled her way higher using those high value elements. But yeah, there's a lot of growth to be done there. There's a ton of potential in Van Velten.
Gosh.
I mean, she really is a fun skater to watch. She's very exciting. She's fearless, but she is right now more the jock than the artist. And finding that balance and making that work is where there's some work to be done. I feel like that's also kind of the story for Anna Pezzetta, who landed here in 13th overall, pretty consistent, 12th in the short, 13th in the long. Anna Pezzetta, I think, has a little bit more show factor than, say, Van Velten does in this moment.
More refinement so far.
But she is very definitely a powerful skater. There's something I was thinking about afterwards. Watching her skate is like watching a gazelle run. There is something so aesthetically pleasing about that athletic power she illustrates on the ice. She's so fast. She has such a great edge. There's a lot of stuff to improve in that skating, but she is kind of poetry in motion. It's just not the pretty textbook picture of ice dancing. It is this much more aggressive, fast, powerful style.
And she has the biggest jumps in women's figure skating.
Yes.
Hands down. Senior, junior, doesn't matter. Absolutely astoundingly big jumps. You're sitting and watching and you say wow out loud. At least we did.
Yeah,
and
a lot of times.
So can't wait to see how she continues to grow because she's going to be a force. There's no question in my mind. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
She's incredible.
And again, this is one of those places where this illustrates the strength of this. And I know we didn't even talk about some of the other people in the top 10, but just the strength of this competition that you have people who are this good that are not ranking even in the top 10. And that's also like looking at Korea's Yoo-jae Kim, who's one of the Kim twins. Her sister Yoo-song we saw in the gala at Four Continents. We've been fairly aware of them watching like Korean nationals. Yoo-jae is a terrific skater who just didn't have particularly strong skates here. I have a lot of hope for her and her sister both because they're both like such big, bright personalities. They really shine on the ice, but it just didn't come together technically here in a way that was, I'm sure, satisfying for them or for the judges. And I do want to throw one honorable mention of a skater who didn't actually make the free skate. Kazakhstan's Veronica Kim came in 26th here. She just missed the free skate by a couple of spots. A young skater, you might recognize her or remember her aesthetically because she had green hair.
Yeah.
And there's, again, kind of a raw diamond. Like, this is a skater who I didn't know anything about beforehand, clearly wasn't at quite the level to make it into the free here at this level of competition, but who was very exciting and really fun. I thought she got kind of underscored, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what she does yet because I really liked her.
I agree. She surprised me. She came out of nowhere. She's very young, but her chutzpah is the word I'm going to use. Like, she had tons of chutzpah, and she was so, I am going for everything, fearless, exciting. She might have not made the free, but she definitely made our radar, and we're looking forward to more from her.
Yeah. So let's jump over into the men's. There's not as much that we're going to hit here with them, but I love the podium here. The 1, 2, 3 of Japan's Rio Nakata, Korea's Minkyu Siu, and Slovakia's Adam Hagara. I love everything about that. It was a shame to see America's Jacob Sanchez fall out of that top 3 because he's also a terrific skater. He just didn't have as strong a free skate. But overall, those 3 guys on that podium made me really happy because they're all terrific skaters.
I loved seeing the progress from particularly Rio and Minkyu this season. Just to watch these 2 young men continue to evolve and their styles continue to evolve. I think Rio, he's come a long way since the James Bond program, which is the first time I remember him. This Pirates of the Caribbean program that he did.
Which was a program that his father did when he was a competitive skater.
Which I love. And he's such a serious competitor on the ice. He's so intense. His jumps are exquisite whenever he does them really well. We've seen Rio show that he's got the goods. Like, he, I believe, was second at Senior Japan Nationals this year, right behind Yuma Kageyama. So we're going to be seeing Rio's name for quite a while.
I can get kind of bored of Pirates of the Caribbean programs because they can feel a little tacky sometimes. They're a little camp. And I love that Rio did not lean that direction. It's not overtly about trying to just remake the movie in the character that he's doing. He's skating to the music, but not necessarily like the film that it comes from. And I really appreciated that. There's a real interpretation of the music there that I thought that he executed super well. There's just so much growth, like you were talking about, like just such a jump from him feeling still very much like a kid skating to James Bond, which felt very much like a young boy being like, I'm going to be James Bond.
Yeah.
That's what I would have done, right? Like, I think that's what I said last year afterwards. If I was in his place at that age, I totally would have done something similar to that. The growth here is obvious, but with Minkyu, he did slip into the second spot after the free skate. He had just not quite the program he was going for. But another skater who's just showing a ton of growth and a lot of evolution. It's funny, we got a comment a while back where they said, oh, you must hate his skating. You just seemed really unimpressed with him every time that you've talked about him. And that really kind of took me by surprise. I think that other times that we've seen Minkyu, we've seen him in like senior competitions against like Junwon Cha. That's just not a fair comparison most of the time. No. And Minkyu is getting there, but he is still a junior men's skater. And so he's still in that evolution, but he has just an absolute ton of quality to what he's doing. I just don't like these programs as much. I liked some of the other men's programs more than his, but that doesn't take away from the fact that Minkyu is great.
And on the other hand, I really liked his free skate. It felt like I was seeing Minkyu level up. The style of music just seemed to suit him really well. He seemed to enjoy it. Whether he did or not, he made me a believer, and I'm happy to see him stepping forward and not just being the kid doing big jumps, but really feeling like he's performing. And I'm excited for his future. I think it'll be really interesting to watch.
But I was thrilled to see Adam Hagara jump up into third here. I really appreciated him last season when I think we were sort of discovering him sort of alongside Rio Nakata, and knowing that they're good friends, you can tell that it means a lot to you to have a friend on the podium with you. Also, just the Good Vibes squad. If you saw any of the behind the scenes posts with pretty much all the top 4, they're so appreciative of each other, so supportive, and just so affectionate with each other. It's that thing that makes me really excited for the ongoing generations of skating. It's just seeing that mutual support society that seems to exist amongst all of them. But Adam here jumping from 5th into that 3rd spot, I thought was absolutely terrific. He does need to level up those big elements into quads in order for him to be competitive senior, because he did compete a little bit on the senior circuit this season, just didn't manage to really make a big splash because he just doesn't have the technical firepower yet. But I really like his programs. I like his skating style. I thought that what he brought to the ice here was very enjoyable. I'm hoping for that technical growth so that he can continue to evolve on the senior level, but I do think he's an exciting skater. Also, I want to note that unlike the women where the top three were competitive scorers with senior women, that is not the case here with the junior men. I mean, Rio is winning with a 248.99, which is not really a competitive score in higher level senior international competition. But that also reflects that these are young guys that just don't quite have those big jumps yet, like a lot of the senior skaters do.
Yeah, I mean, they would be competitive on like a challenger series for
Sure.
but not necessarily once you get to the like top 10 men and seniors for sure. But I do want to give special kudos to Jacob Sanchez. He did win a small medal by getting third in the short. And what is sad is that I saw Jackie Wong of Rocker Skating post about the fact that Jacob's one mistake that lost him the podium to Adam Hagara was his best jump. It was a triple lines is the one he popped. And it was just that one combination that he faltered on. Everything else looked absolutely spectacular. Jacob is such a star. He has so much it factor. The U.S. needs him so much in the men's program. I just think that he brings something really special to men's skating for the USA. And he still stands a very good chance of being one of the guys that is going to go to the Olympics next year because he'll be age eligible. It might not have gone the way he wanted, but I think it's another great step for him towards his full senior debut next year. And it'll be a really interesting time for him. I hope he has a great offseason that really takes him far and that we see great things from him next year.
I think that of the top four here, Jacob has the most charisma of all of those guys.
I agree.
He is such a bright force on the ice. He's so much fun to watch, tons of quality. But his cell is really distinctive. I mean, I think that's like the top quality that you're going to think about with him because he just has that huge performance value. It's just about bringing it all together. Again, he's here with a 230.41. So if he wants to be like the third man going to the Olympics for the U.S., if that's what we manage to pull off after this Worlds, he's going to need to be able to bring that number up to be effective in that position.
Yes, for sure.
But he really is one of those skaters of the future. And I'm looking forward to a long career of him on the ice because he's awesome.
Rounding out the top six, Haben Choi from Korea, I thought did a really, really nice job. Shunsuke Nakamura from Japan as well. Neither one of them were too far back. They're all within 5 points of where Jacob was. And that's not far behind the podium. So all of that top six were very much in the mix until the very end. So kudos to all of them.
And just one quick special mention for Canada's Anthony Paradis. He's in 16th here, quite a ways back, but we've been watching his career with interest because of just some of the weakness in the Canadian senior men's ranks. They really need Anthony to get his technical level up and be ready for seniors here in a year or two, because Anthony is one of the most interesting artistic skaters. He's been skating this free skate for 2 seasons now, and this was his official final performance of it. I think it's been so defining for him, but I'm really ready to see him try on a new program and see how that fits him. I was really happy to see him attempt a triple axel here, because if there's been a huge hole in his repertoire, it's that he just has not had a dependable triple axel. He's mostly doing doubles. You can get away with that in juniors for a while, but definitely not in seniors. He didn't get all the way around. I think he fell on it.
He did.
But he actually threw it, which by his own admission, most of the time when he tries to do a triple axel, he just pops it. His body gives up on it in the midair. So getting his body to listen to him and actually go for it is a huge first step. So hoping that means over the off season that he's able to work on that and bring those technical levels up, because there's just very few of the men who are as exciting artistically.
No, I can't wait to see where Anthony Paradis is in, say, 3 years. Well, we're going to talk about the pairs a bit. And to no one's surprise, Anastasio Metzelkina and Luka Berlava from Georgia took gold because they're senior skaters skating in the juniors. But they were still eligible. It still felt weird, but they technically did nothing wrong. And I feel like I'm justifying it for them.
So here's the thing, right? By the rules and the way the system works, they are absolutely eligible to be here.
100%.
And there's a lot to be said for smaller federations that don't have a lot of representation in all of the disciplines, that they're going to send whoever they have who is viable, who is eligible to these things to rank up points for their federation everywhere. It's just rough when you're watching a team that includes a guy who was at the Senior Olympics 3 years ago, who have been consistently as a team competitive on the senior ranks, have been in the Senior Grand Prix, will compete in Senior Worlds, who then go back to Junior Worlds and just dominate the landscape of it because they're just, you know, adults. And granted, I guess Anastasia is 19 or 20 at this point. People joke about Uncle Luca being out there with his 5 o'clock shadow or whatever, but this team is really strong.
They are.
They're consistently a threat in the senior level. I don't know that there's another woman in this sport that has better line coming out of a thrown triple than Anastasia Metlkina. I mean, it is just amazing, but it feels weird to have a competition that is largely aimed at younger skaters, and then you're seeing people who look like they're in their mid-20s to early 30s out there also eyeing the Ukrainian team. It just feels a little strange.
Yeah, regardless, they were excellent. They did their job. And I read a quote from Anastasia talking about the fact that they're still a relatively new team. They've only been competing for about 2 years together. They've got the Olympic Games next season, and they're just sort of taking advantage of every opportunity to compete so they can continue to grow and get better. So from that perspective, I understand it.
Yeah. And for a team that often doesn't feel entirely connected, for all that both of them are very good and that they do tend to sync up really well, there are also a lot of places where it feels like two people who are skating on the ice at the same time, but not necessarily together. That opportunity for refinement under the pressure of competition is very valuable. It's also worth noting that they won Junior Worlds last year in a very messy fashion.
They did.
They won, but their free skate was terrible at last year's Junior Worlds. Even though they walked away with the gold, the score they looked miserable with. It was not a good performance to win with. And here it was still not perfect. There's still little problems. There was even something at the end. They got done and Anastasia turned to Luca and seemed to ask him what happened. Like it seemed like something got missed. The vibe seemed to be, why didn't you do something? So clearly something kind of got missed, but they walk away here almost 30 points over second place. Yes, they are still a fairly new team, but they are a very talented team doing what a talented team does, which is deliver good performances.
Yeah. In second, we saw Sofia Holachenko and Artem Derenitsky from Ukraine, and I was really impressed with them technically. They had tons of power, so fast. The thing that I took away watching them was complete fearlessness in both programs from both of them. They were just throwing it all out the wind. It did not feel like I was watching two people that were competing because you can usually at least see an ounce of nerves. There was nothing. They were there to do what they were going to do and take it for what it was. So while their skates weren't perfect, I thought they did a really solid job. But I do agree that he looks a lot older.
I mean, it's probably the facial hair. He has kind of silly facial hair, and I think that might be a big part of it. If he was clean shaven, he might be more baby faced, but it does make him look like a 30-year-old out there. Right. He's also a big dude, so it, you know, that helps with
Yes, that is a minor thing, but it was just a little like, huh? Oh, okay. But then in third, we saw Martina Ariano Kent and Charlie La Liberté Laurent from Canada take third. I thought that they did a really solid job. I don't know that it was the most exciting programs. They were fourth in the short, third in the free, and they were solid. That's the word I'm going to use. Like, I felt like they have a lot of room to grow in terms of their expression on the ice, but they did seem like warm, lovely competitors and were very technically sound. So kudos to them.
A team I was actually really impressed with was the Swiss team of, oh my boy, I'm going to get this wrong, Oksana Vulimaz and Tom Bouvard.
Bavard. Tom Bavard.
Bavard. That sounds like a good like sportscaster name. Tom Bavard. Wasn't familiar with this team. Really enjoyed them. Tom is clearly super strong. That dude is a powerful skater who, after their first side-by-sides, I was a little worried that he was going to have the big guy problem with jumps, where like so many of the big dudes in pair skating are super stiff and bad at the singles. But they did their combo and he looked great. And the height they get on the throws, she had terrific landings. Again, you want to talk about fearless. Oksana, clearly a fearless skater. They had a really wonderful connection between the two of them. And just in general, I thought that was what you want out of pair skating, like really exciting, big lifts, big throws, and just a lot of fun. I like the team a whole lot.
Yeah, they were a new team to me, and I'm looking forward to more. But I also don't want to forget to talk about our two American teams and where they placed. Olivia Flores and Luke Wang, who had been silver last year at Worlds, didn't do as well here. They came in 8th in the short, 5th in the free, so it was a lot better there. 6th place overall, which I think is good in their trajectory. I'm sure they would have liked to have been on the podium again, but that free skate looked fantastic to me, and I continue to see more refinement and a build on their partnership every time I see them. So while it's not the placement that they probably wanted, I think that the performance really paid off.
I was particularly impressed with Olivia in the free skate. I just thought that her singles elements looked really strong. The landings were really nice. Even though the podium placement may not show it, I think this team keeps improving all the time, and I like them a lot. You know, we had a 9th place finish for the other USA team, Naomi Williams and Lachlan Lure. We've talked a lot about this team as kind of our favorites from the juniors because they are just, on a personality level, just some of the most engaging people that I've seen come up in those ranks in a while. They're so much fun. They bring such a different kind of personality to their performances. They're pretty inventive. They try some weird stuff. I like that. I like a little weird in there. These could have been cleaner performances. There's definitely spots where they're throwing doubles in places that they're going to need to improve upon in order to get back up in the ranks. But a team that I always have a high appreciation of.
Lastly, I don't want to forget to give a special shout to Romain Telemaque and Luca Colon from France. They had a horror program that both of us were really taken with.
That was my favorite program from the pairs. I loved it. I like a good horror theme program anyway. I like when they try to do something a little creepy, a little different. And yes, I really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, they need to evolve technically for sure, but they've got a vibe on the ice that I didn't see from anybody else. And the way they started the program with her in a little doll position and just doing little head movements that felt very creepy. It was like, you're doing a good job. And I liked the thematic bows, very ice dance themed.
Yes. There was something kind of ice dancey about them in general as far as the way they handled their character work. And yeah, they're going to fall into like a team to watch for me because I was really into what they were doing. It was just so much more aesthetic and heavy on point of view than a lot of the pair skates.
Well, let's finish it up with a very brief look at ice dance, mostly brief because we didn't watch very much of it, just very candidly. Nomi Maria Tali and Noah Laforna from Italy took gold. They looked beautiful. They were clearly the winners. And while, again, I didn't necessarily love the material, it felt a little samey to some stuff that I've seen before. Their quality is extremely high level. They are absolutely ready to move into seniors. They are ones to watch for the future in ice dance. But as we see, in ice dance, our top teams are all in their 30s. There is a long ladder up to the top for ice dance, and they are on it. They're just lower down, and they will get there. Yeah. But right now, for what they were doing, I was super impressed.
The level of refinement that they have.
Yes.
I feel like a dance pair that have already been together for like 8 years.
And maybe they have, because I don't know.
They might be one of those teams that was put together as kids or something, because they have that sense of like they always know where the other one is at. When one puts their hand out, the other one is there, which is what you always want in ice dance. It's not unique in seniors, but sometimes you can feel that kind of missing in juniors. And there's that sense of two people who are fully unified on the ice. I agree that the material is not particularly striking to me, but the quality of the skate of the Italian team is definitely there.
Yeah. I was super happy and impressed with Katarina Wolfkasten and Dmitry Zarnivsky from the U.S. This team hasn't been together that long, I think a little less than 2 years. They have come so far. I think a silver medal for them here is wonderful. I'm excited to see where they go. Katerina used to be with Jeffrey Chen, and I see such a difference in her with Dimitri. I think this partnership is significantly better, and they both shine together.
I forgot that she had been attached to Jeffrey Chen, and considering he's now been suspended and his team is now ended as well, like
she's feeling pretty good about her choice.
Yeah, I think that Katerina is doing okay. I thought both of these programs look really good on this team. At the stage that they're at, to come in here in second and to perform as well as they did, to look as strong together, and there's a warmth to their performance value together that I think is really lovely to see. You know, there's a lot of work to get to that sort of senior level, but there's a lot of promise here too. And I think that the first time I saw this team together, I wasn't super impressed with them because they were just so new. Now they really look far more like a unified front together on the ice, and very excited for them.
Yeah. And in third place here, the German team of Daria Grimm and Mikhail Savinsky, I thought were fun. I thought they did a really solid job. Again, similar material to stuff I've seen before, but that said, their technical skills were very high.
They had a couple of lifts that I really liked. There's a particular one where he's about hip level on her in the spin, and she's kind of like out flat. And then, you know, there's this kind of cool transition. I don't know. It's hard to describe lifts.
It is actually.
Like trying to figure out how to like say that. We're like, well, you know, they put the leg here and they kind of go upside down. Yeah, you just have to watch it. And I don't know what you call it, but I really liked it. And it was just like programs that were full of really nice skating that just don't kind of stick out to me in a huge way. But I do think that the top three teams did manage to all exert their own personalities in a very nice way.
Well, now the question, who's gold in your heart?
Hannah Bath.
Nice.
Hannah Bath from Australia in the women's competition. She comes in 10th here, but that's a jump from 17th. You know, she got 4th in the free. There's so many of the women's skates that could be celebrated here. There's so many of that are so good. But for somebody who kind of came out of nowhere for me, that I had no expectations for, no awareness of, her skates are a couple of the ones that are going to really stick out to me from this. So yeah, I'm just hoping to see further great growth from Hannah Bath.
I'm going with Anna Pizzetta.
Ooh.
Because her jumps and her aggressive skate, and to the point you made, she's just fun to watch. Yeah. She's so in the moment. And when she makes a mistake, I feel like it's because she's going too hard, not because she's going not enough. And I like that. Like at one point she did a jump and just slammed into the boards, but didn't fall. I'm like, this woman's a beast.
That's nuts.
I love it. And I am a fan, and I don't think I was enough of a fan before. And now I am fully on board. Team Anna Pizzetta, gold in my heart.
I think that you could watch Anna Pizzetta just skate around the ring at full speed and it would still be entertaining. There's just something so aesthetic about her speed and the way that she skates that I really appreciate. And I think that's a great choice. I think it's interesting that both of us had people who are that far down in the podium because particularly in the women's division, there was just so much good stuff. I mean, there's tons of other skaters that were here that didn't rank high, but were wonderful. The women's field, when we know not all of these women will, you know, make it to seniors or stick it out a long time because the sport does have a certain level of churn and it's hard to stick with it. But it does feel like the women's discipline is in pretty good shape going forward if you were looking at this next generation.
I totally agree. Well, I think that wraps us up. So I think next week you'll be hearing us talk about Legacy on Ice, which I am looking forward to watching, although I am going to keep a box of Kleenex close by because I expect to be sobbing through at least probably all of it. What am I talking about?
Yeah. That one's going to be tough. And I'm sure there's going to be some other news and stuff to catch up on. I imagine there's still going to be some more hot takes and things in the fallout of the Fournier Beaudry and Cizeron thing. Let us know in the comments how you're feeling about that.
I want to know.
Are you as conflicted about us? Are you excited? Does it make you a little queasy in the stomach like it does for us? Because we definitely feel real weird about it. I wish that I was excited, but I just can't find it in myself to be about it. But let us know about that. But on the brighter note, how did you feel about juniors? If you watched it, were you familiar with them? Did you have new favorites? Who is gold in your heart? Let us know all that stuff. Also, thank you. We had a lot of people who, after the last episode, when we basically did a call out for subscribes, because we're closing in on that 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, Quite a lot of you jumped over from other platforms where you would listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and came over and gave us that subscription here on YouTube as well, which I really appreciate. You guys are awesome. That is huge. But yeah, we'll get back to you next week with the stuff about Legacy on Ice. And for Choreography, I'm Adrian Buskey.
And I'm Wendy Buskey.
And we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.